Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm Councilmember Augie Tulba. Today, we're talking public safety, accountability, and the work happening every day to keep our community safe. And joining us are two top leaders in the Honolulu City Prosecuting Office. First, Prosecuting Attorney Steve Alm. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
Prosecutor Alm was elected in 2020 with a focus on restoring trust in the prosecuting office. He served 15 years as circuit court judge and helped create HOPE as a probation program used nationwide. He also served as a U.S. attorney for the District of Hawaii and as a deputy prosecutor here in Honolulu. He also married me and my wife. I don't know if you guys know that. And he married my daughter. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Also joining us is Scott Bell, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney and Division Chief of Special Prosecution Division. Scott leads teams focused on career criminals, sex offenders, white-collar crime, and crimes against kūpuna. He is a career prosecutor with extensive trial experience and multiple statewide recognitions. Thank you guys both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
All right, we went to serious business, man.
Good to be here.
You know, and you know, as the chair of public safety, I know that is in my district. I cannot speak, you know, about other districts. I can tell you that public safety is the number one thing that the people in my community care about. You know, being safe, and number two is having clean parks. And parking, believe it or not, in Waipahu. All right, guys. Can each of you give me a quick snapshot of the background and where you went to school, what led you into this work, and what keeps you going in a job that can be very demanding?
Okay, born and raised here, went to University Lab School. My parents are professors at UH. And so I worked at Dole Cannery, for 4 summers. I played all the sports there, but I needed a sport after high school, so I went down to Kalakaua Rec and joined Kalihi Youth Boxing Club.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fitting. My first trip to Oahu prison was for a fight, But I went to law school with the idea of being a prosecutor because I knew that's where so much happened, changes that could be made. And Hawaii's small enough that you really can make changes here that last.
Yeah, I believe so. And
Sure, I grew up here in Oahu as well.
Okay.
Proud graduate of Farrington Upper Campus, Kamehameha Schools.
Oh man, I almost sang the alma mater. I was like, yeah.
And earned an undergraduate and law degree at Brigham University in Utah. And I chose this work because I was first exposed as a law student. I worked at a local and federal prosecutor's office and had wonderful mentors there. And my first job out of law school as a law clerk for a judge here in Honolulu, and her calendar at the time was a criminal calendar.
Okay.
So I watched all of the prosecutors and public defenders who came through, and I said, I want to do that. And that's how I ended up here, and I haven't left, and it's been the best decision.
That's awesome. Yeah, my wife and daughter, they can watch, court TV, and stay on the case for weeks. I told my daughter, you should do something like that. If
Go to law school.
Yeah, go to law school. Come on. Help us, get people, the bad people in jail, right? Yeah. So, Steve, you've seen the system from many angles. Judge, U.S. attorney, now prosecutor. Scott, you're in a courtroom headlining major cases. How do you roles differ day to day, and how do you work together to keep the system moving?
Well, I loved being a trial attorney back when I was at the office the first time. But my job now is to look at the big picture. Mm-hmm. It's to work with city council, work with the legislature, maybe get some laws passed to help us. It's to start programs like Weed and Seed and Safe and Sound, because public safety is our #1 job.
Yeah.
And so it's working with folks like Scott and the other division chiefs, because when we try to get the line deputies to be working with their team captains, and the team captains work with the division chiefs. And then we talk to the division chiefs, me and Tom Brady, the first deputy, about where we ought to be going with this. And we're trying to think of what can we do to reduce crime? What can we, and you're absolutely right. Public safety is what I ran on and what people are most concerned with. If we can make the system work better and fair and more efficient, that's great. But it's got to be public safety #1. Yeah. And here he is the top trial attorney in our office. So you got the right guy here.
As one of the division chiefs under Steve's direction, my job is to implement his vision, and that's what I'm doing. under his direction. So what we're looking for is essentially three things. You know, protecting our community, advocating for victims and survivors, and ensuring the fair administration of justice. And so in the Special Prosecution Division, that's what we're doing. And I have two roles, essentially administrative roles, which aren't really important, but not sexy or headline grabbing, but important nonetheless. What I mean by that is to train and motivate, inspire the deputies that this community wants to see highly trained, effective, skilled, who obtain just outcomes. Right. Another thing that Steve has made very clear and that we follow in the Special Prosecution Division is that as prosecutors, our goal isn't just to win cases, but rather to make sure that there are just results. We asked, what does that mean? Well, basically it means we want to make sure that the guilty don't escape or that the innocent aren't unfairly punished. And that's what we do on a day-to-day basis. And in special prosecution, we handle the most significant, I would say, cases of career criminals, sex offenders, those who abuse our kūpuna, and then those who engage in white-collar crime, which is high theft.
Yeah. Hawaii, it's not the same as the Hawaii we grew up in, and I know I'm going off script, but is it getting better? Is it getting better or, because I almost feel like there's a lot of challenges, when I go in and I talk to, merchants in Ever Beach, and you see a lot of stores closing further down, and they say it's because, theft,
Okay, I think when you look at the numbers, crime is down in almost every category on Oahu.
Okay.
And it's down in every category on the west side. And we're doing our Safe and Sound project there. But I think because when people look at social disorder, homelessness, brazen shoplifting, walk in, grab something and walk out, or running red lights, I think in their minds they equate that with crime, even though it's not the same thing. And I think with social media, and it leads, and the media, people can get a sense. So I try to tell people, hey, whatever you're doing, keep it up, because crime is going down. And you're just becoming more aware of it, I think, through social media and through the news.
Yeah, I think social media doesn't help. Right. There's so much noise now, right? So much distractions to life, and so I did a funny joke last couple weeks ago when I did my show, and how rain wasn't the reason why you kept your kids home. Right. When we were growing up, right? And people laugh because I remember, just go outside, play. Well, it's raining. Now rain, little wind, keep the kids home. Because and then we see a lot of stuff online, and we just think just chaos all over the place. Yeah.
We used to be out there playing until dinner time.
That's right.
You weren't supervised.
They told you stay out. Stay out. I don't want you in the house. Stay out of the house. Hey, let me ask you guys this. Can you share any personal life lessons you've learned by, working in the criminal justice system?
Well, there are a couple that come to mind.
Okay.
First is the importance of compassion.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, as prosecutors, we have this duty of justice and advocating for victims, and I've learned to be compassionate, to deeply feel the pain or sorrow or anguish that victims or survivors feel, but also be cognizant of the offenders as well. In other words, we're not stone cold, but rather we're aware that crimes impact everyone, including the lives of the defendant and their families. I've also learned to be resilient. You got to have grit, right? Yeah. This is a difficult, demanding, unrelenting job. You learn to be resilient. But the last thing I think that really applies is the importance of fairness to all. In a recent case, the offender, the victim, and all the key witnesses were unsheltered and living on a West Oahu beach. And in preparing for that trial, I met with one of the key witnesses, and she asked me, "What do you think of me?" Like, what are you talking about? What do I think of you? In other words, what she was saying is, do you think poorly of me because of my circumstances? Yeah. And what she was really communicating, I didn't think perhaps she believed that she wouldn't get a fair shake in court, that law enforcement wouldn't take them seriously, or that the case wouldn't be prosecuted vigorously. And I assured her that wasn't the case, that I saw her as another citizen of this community, and that law enforcement, both the police and the prosecution, were dedicated to a fair, vigorous investigation and prosecution of the case. And I hope that satisfied her, but I was touched by that when she asked me, "What do you think of me?" Suggesting that maybe that those in our community perhaps feel that they're not going to be treated
Invisible.
fairly.
They
Right.
feel invisible, right?
Right.
And mine, I think it's that our job, number one job is public safety.
Yeah.
At the same time, the criminal justice system can be used to help people, leverage, because the dirty secret is, you ask people, you have a drug problem? No. You need to go to treatment? No.
Yeah.
And yet, because nobody will go on their own, almost nobody. And so programs like Hope Probation, I still get stopped every couple of weeks by somebody who was in Hope. Because when I left, I was supervising 2,200 people on felony probation.
Yeah.
And so they stopped me, and some homeless guys, bus drivers, other people, because they said, thank you for saving my life. I said, you saved your own life, but I was happy to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And so the criminal justice system can be a really good thing to help people stop the craziness and to help them stop using drugs and have a better life.
Right.
So it is, and the only reason Hope worked is defendants thought they were being treated fairly. Otherwise never would have worked.
Yeah, I remember you inviting me to come and speak.
Yep.
And it was so funny because I remember that morning, I'm sitting there, and I think, maybe reason why I've been in comedy now for over 30 years, that maybe there's some relatability, but I'm sitting in there and that guy's looking at me, he was like, why you smoke? He was like, why you bird? I go, no, but I'm here to speak to you. It was like the most.
He was relating.
Yeah, he told hey, Augie's one of the boys. I go, no, dude, I'm here to speak about.
Well, you wanted to build on common beliefs there, right?
But the way he did it was so funny. I was like,
That's pretty funny.
Scott, you're dealing directly with some of the most serious cases. What types of crimes are you seeing right now? And are there any cases you can highlight or stand out?
Sure. Well, I can't speak directly to cases that are pending resolution because ongoing litigation. I can point out a couple of trends in recently concluded cases that I think illustrate the point. The first is we continue to see gun-related violence involving career criminals. In a recently concluded trial, the shooter was a longtime career criminal who had previously been his rap sheet went back 30 years and had been prosecuted for various offenses in state court and federal court for firearms-related offenses. But yet after all of that, his conduct hadn't changed. He had reverted to the same life that he knew and got his hand on the gun and shot someone. So the gun-related violence involving career criminals is a thing that we consistently see in special prosecution. And the second thing that I like to point out is violent crime produced or as a result of people who've become temporarily psychotic through self-induced intoxication, meaning purposefully and voluntarily ingesting mind-altering substances, whether it's alcohol, over-the-counter medication, or methamphetamine that causes them to become psychotic. And recently, we had a defendant who pled guilty to murder in the first degree for killing his nephew and attempting to kill his sister while under this drug-induced stage. And last year, I prosecuted another individual who stabbed to death his elderly mother and her comfort animal, who at the time was under this psychotic delusion due to his meth use. So these are some things that they're not necessarily new themes, but we continue to see them.
You feel like it's generational? So I have a lot of, friends who work in the prison system, and they say, man, I'm seeing the same family members, and now they're getting younger. Why, are you seeing some of that?
Well, unfortunately, we do see that in career criminal, and we don't want to see career criminal are people who, through their conduct, they keep coming back, yeah? And unfortunately, when we look into their lives, we see that they have a history as juveniles. And then we look at their home situation. It's not uncommon for them to have had a father or a male figure incarcerated, and they have learned from those examples, and they've unfortunately perpetuated this. And I'm not casting a broad brush that everybody's like that, but it is unmistakable that these intergenerational traditions unfortunately are passed on.
Yeah. Steve, from your perspective, overseeing the entire office, what are you seeing across the board, and what do these cases tell you about where we are, as far as our community?
Well, I think it's, we used to warn our kids about, hey, be careful in the park, you might run into somebody, Now it's on their phones and in social media. And there are predators who are targeting kids, and they're getting kids to send them nude pictures, and then they're blackmailing them. or they're reaching out, getting to know some kids, saying, don't tell your mother, and meeting them certain places and sexually assaulting them. And so for parents, it's such a hard job, but your kid has no right to hide anything on their phone from you.
Right.
So parents need to get in there, know what their kids are doing, and just have a frank conversation about the dangers on the internet, that some adults may be pretending to be kids, and don't share personal information. And once something is posted, it's always out there. And so that's a real danger. We're really worried about social media. We're worried about people on their phones. And people are sinking into that and then being exploited.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes, as parents, we make the excuse that we don't have time or we're working too much, but it's so important. Like, I'm so thankful. My daughter does an anti-bullying foundation. And it's because I was aware of what's happening in her life. And it doesn't take much to just ask, like, what's going on, or even like, you paying for the phone.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let me see what you're looking at. Or you can tell by the way they, or they hide they hide the phone, or just the way you can see the personalities changing. Especially if they're getting picked on or something.
Yeah.
If you're not aware of that, man, it's time. As parents, we all gotta step up and do our part, because, we're losing our kids to, that kind of stupidity that's going on online. Walk us through what happens after arrest, and what are the biggest challenges for prosecutors face when getting to cases to court.
Sure. When we talk about arrest, let's talk about the more serious cases called felonies. Felonies is a crime punishable by more than 1 year of imprisonment. The way the office is set up is that felonies are routed through different channels for investigation, charging decisions, and then prosecution. Normally it depends on the status of the offender. For example, if someone is a career criminal who's committed a sexual offense, hurt our kūpuna, they would come to my division, where specialized teams will handle the case from the investigation all the way through post-conviction proceedings. But generally what happens, Augie, is that when somebody is arrested and the evidence is sufficient for the police and the prosecutor's office to decide, we can go forward beyond a reasonable doubt with the evidence, then we start the case. We initiate a prosecution by a proceeding either called a grand jury proceeding, and you've probably heard of that, or we can initiate it by a written document called an information, or getting a district court complaint. But after a person is formally charged, then they appear in court for something that's called an arraignment. And the arraignment is the initial appearance where a plea is entered, guilty, not guilty, you've heard that, and then we set a court date. I'm sure your viewership have heard the thing about a speedy trial. That's a constitutional right, but let me assure you there's nothing speedy about the resolution of cases, unfortunately. There's various reasons for that. It's the prosecution's intention to resolve the case as soon as possible. But for reasons beyond our control, the cases, for whatever reason, can get continued, and it kind of stalls or just slows. But nonetheless, the prosecution's responsibility is always to be prepared. And that means prepared to resolve the case either through a jury trial or to negotiate the right result. So the vast majority of cases have a negotiated result or resolution, but to get there, you got to be prepared. You have to thoroughly investigate the case, work hand in hand with law enforcement, be in touch and in complete sync with your victim or victims so that the right decisions can be made.
Steve?
Yeah, and the last few years have seen a huge increase in the number of new felonies and misdemeanors. And between fiscal year 23 and 2025, 69% increase in new cases and 24% increase in misdemeanors. And so for the felonies, that meant in fiscal year 25, there were 2,829 new felony cases. And so because of that, we're working with the city council, and thank you for always supporting law enforcement.
Absolutely.
To even try to get new positions, because we want to be able to have our deputies and the police be able to bring up charges faster, because that will prevent other crimes. So we're really happy. We have a lot of people applying at the office now. They're, I don't know what it is, something in the water, but a lot of people want to work there now.
I just think, people are tired and they want to see, like you said, crime is going down, but we still gotta, we gotta get these cases to court so that the bad guys, go to jail or, serve the time they need to serve, for the things that they did, So what are some crimes that the public may not be paying enough attention to, and who is most affected?
Let me follow up with what Steve mentioned
Okay.
earlier about the
Yeah.
cell phones and the dangers associated with that. Perhaps it's not new, but a significant work that we do in the Special Prosecution Division involves the sexual assault and exploitation of children. So following up with the smartphone use and mobile devices, parents need to be vigilant, as you discussed earlier, about the platforms that are being used, what's being discussed. And the parents and guardians need to cultivate the kind of trusting relationship so that a child feels comfortable disclosing. Encourage parents to be patient and non-judgmental, because it's only in those circumstances when a child who's been a victim of these serious crimes would be willing to disclose. In this same realm, we've also seen the use of technology to exploit our children and the use of AI or Photoshop to unfortunately create disturbing images that can result in various kinds of charges. And the last, not a new thing, but it represents the predominant majority of our cases, is intrafamilial sexual assault. You know, we don't want to think about it, but the vast majority of sexual assaults against our children are by a known person.
Yeah.
It's not the boogeyman
Yeah.
in the, it's not the boogeyman.
family
yeah.
member,
Family
right?
member, boyfriend,
Yeah.
a trusted adult, and just to be aware. And we don't want to think that it happens, but it absolutely does.
Yeah. Steve?
Yeah, and I think everybody's got to be careful. Don't ever give out personal information.
Yeah.
You know, no legitimate company is going to, or bank is going to call you and ask for your social security number or date of birth.
Yeah.
And those are the two big scary things that we want people to be cautious, be careful, and, you know, again, going back to what is your kid doing online? And if they're trying to hide it from you, there's a problem there.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing kids getting bullied so much online.
Yeah.
And you hear of kids committing suicide, and it's a tough time to be a kid with all that pressure,
Yeah.
you know, online.
I mean, it's too much noise for us adults. Can you imagine
Right.
what a kid is going
Right.
through right now? So, good. So, what advice do you have for families trying to protect the keiki and kūpuna if someone does become a victim, and what should they do right away?
Well, we encourage them to call the police.
Yeah, of course.
And the police are being very good at this. We have very good sex, assault team at our office. They're trying to have the kid interviewed once, the same deputy prosecutor handling the case throughout. And we want to help people. They're even working on some sex trafficking. But for sex trafficking, whatever works for the kid is what we want. So if they can get out of that life, whether they want to be a witness or not, that's a win. You know, if they want to be witnesses, that's great. Isla Weiss is a top prosecutor, and she's team captain there. She won a case against a pimp and got consecutive sentence, so he got 40 years in prison. And he kept firing his lawyer, continuing the case. So he was at LCCC for several years.
Gosh.
Because I think he was trying to outlast the victims,
Right.
the survivors. And so they were in their 20s when they finally testified against him, because it was several years old. But they were able to overcome their fear, back to Hawaii. They were living on the mainland, and they went to court, ID'd the guy, he got convicted. And so if young people want to do that, that's great too. We're happy to do that. We're happy to prosecute. But if it's just getting out of that life, we're happy with that too.
So in addition to sexual assault, I'd like to bring awareness to the crimes against our kūpuna, or our elder abuse unit. A common theme that we see is the financial exploitation of our kūpuna. So the question was, Augie, what can we do to help prevent this, or what happens when it unfortunately occurs? I think it's important, especially in a community like ours where we revere our elders and oftentimes live with them. It's important that we're involved or aware of what's going on in the lives of our kūpuna. They should never be truly alone. Also, to vet, verify, and check up on those who are entrusted with their care. What we see oftentimes is those in positions of trust, whether it's lawfully gained or they've weaseled their way in, they take control of the kūpuna's finances, they steal or abuse other privileges and take over their property. So how do we avoid this? Be aware of our kūpuna, their financial situation, consult with other family members, and just ensure that they're not being isolated by their abuser perhaps, or they're not being taken advantage of either by friends, acquaintances, or scams.
Yeah, no, my mom is constantly changing her card number, and I tell my mom, stop buying stuff and giving out your information. She always come out like, oh yeah, what? I go, Ma, you're doing it again. So you gotta change the card. So if she lives with me, I cannot imagine kūpuna by himself or maybe being checked not as much as they should be, where the money's going and and again, all the craziness of that phone and what that phone does now in this day and age does more than just
And a bunch of older people end up living alone, and they can't drive, they can't go out and get
Correct.
groceries, they can't get help, go to medical appointments.
Yeah.
So it's tough. So the more support services there are out in the community to help folks especially who are alone, if they're fortunate to live with family, that really helps.
But I'm looking for a stepdad for my mom. Anybody? We've talked for almost 27 minutes now.
It's amazing.
And I know, and I still have like all these questions. We gotta I think we have to make this a second time, or maybe one day I'll do a lengthy podcast and not so formatted to, so we can really talk and get things out. But let's talk about big picture, what crime trends are having the biggest impact right now, and what concerns you guys most moving forward as we wrap up today's.
Well, I think I'll go back to the social media and people on their phones.
Yeah.
I mean, that scares me. That people have problems. That's why, I'm really pushing against sports bookmaking, because a young man with a casino in his hand in the phone, and research shows 96% of people betting online lose. So it would be like a tax on our poor citizens. And so, again, especially a young man, a phone, an NFL game, and maybe a few beers, they're going to run through money faster than you can imagine. So it's one of those things we got to go slow on doing stuff like that. But there's so much involved in technology that a lot of that scares me too.
Scott?
So with regards to crime trends, I'd like to speak to career criminals. So, under Steve's guidance, what we're doing is we're seeking the stiffest penalties for those who are habitual offenders, and that whether it be property crimes or crimes of violence. And we continue to see this, crimes of recidivism by those who have previously gone through the system, so to speak, and they haven't been deterred, nor have their behavior been rehabilitated. And so in those situations, Augie, we pursue the stiffest, heaviest penalties under the law, and that's our goal.
Appreciate you guys' leadership and you guys hanging out with me on my community corner, talking story. I wish we had more time. I think we're just getting comfortable.
Just warming up.
I know, we're just warming up.
Thank you for inviting us.
No, but thank you, Steve. I appreciate
appreciate
you.
it.
Scott,
Thank you.
look forward to
Thank you.
talking story with you more. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this segment. We'll see you guys soon. Aloha.
Aloha.